All right, welcome everyone. This is Product Lifecycle Management, Week 2 for the Masters in Technology Management Capstone. I'm NZaccardi, and it is March 15th. So what we're going to cover today are the different forms of technology innovation. We're going to discuss the different types and the different groups of adopters for new technology products and services, and understand some of the factors that influence these types of groups. And then lastly, we're going to cover what the typical pattern of diffusion is of new technology and products and different factors that affect this pattern. So first, technology innovation. So technology innovation can be really categorized into two different buckets, incremental and radical. And their names pretty much define what they mean. So incremental is innovation that involves small improvements to existing technologies, and radical innovation involves a fundamentally new way of solving a problem or a new way of offering a service. Overall, incremental innovation is much more common in technology. It's much more prevalent than radical forms of innovation. An example of incremental innovation could be a new camera, a new feature to an iPhone camera. It's definitely incremental. It can make the picture a little more clearer, a little more pixelated, different improvements to that camera, but the camera itself already exists on top of the iPhone itself already existing, where iPhone could be a more radical form of innovation. These types of innovation can also lead to product and or process innovations. Product innovation ties to innovation related to the creation of new goods and services sold to a customer. And process involves improvements to the method or the process of creating or delivering a product or service. Reinforcing my prior example tied to an iPhone, product innovation could be the improvement to the iPhone camera, where a manufacturing adjustment that reduces the cost of to produce the camera could be an example of process innovation. Now the different types of adopters. So this is the second learning outcome I wanted to discuss. There are 5 groups of adopters or adoption groups: innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Innovators are first on the list, so they adopt products immediately. I'm going to guess that a lot of you are innovators. I know I am, especially when it comes to an iPhone. I always tend to order the new iPhone as soon as it's available. These types of resources or people are eager for the new technology and feel a need to allocate the devices as soon as they're available. They're also intrigued by technology and like to explore how the technology would affect their lives and how it functions in society. Early adopters follow the innovators. This group is willing to purchase new products as information about the products are known and the uncertainty of their value declines. So they're a little more conservative than the innovators. The next group is the early majority. This segment values technology, but it's driven by practical considerations. It's in the middle of the road, so for a reason, right? It's smack dab in the middle. They value the technology. They also weigh the price or the cost. Late majority is the next in this progression of adopters. This group definitely values technology. They're after the early majority, and there's a greater emphasis on cost associated with the technology. And then last are the laggards. So laggards will not adopt the technology until it's well developed, it's well established. Often this adoption occurs only when alternatives to the adoption are no longer available. So I'll use the cell phone example again. My father does not have a cell phone. He uses a landline. He's definitely a laggard when it comes to smartphone or even cell phone technology. And as long as there is a landline, I doubt he will ever use a cell phone. So it's just an interesting example. The different types of adopters. So this goes into a little more detail here and ties in the importance of it. Understanding the adopters and the adopters' patterns. It's important from a technology strategy and a marketing standpoint. You need to understand what phase of adopters you're really marketing to, and how your marketing plan and your strategy needs to be adjusted for those different groups. And this directly correlates to time and cost. So in later groups or later demographics of adopters, cost is extremely important, so you tend to reduce the cost there. Um, that ties into the last bullet, where pricing strategy for the new product is really important. You can look at an example of TVs. So probably 12 years ago, maybe a little longer, 14 years ago, plasma TVs were the rage. However, to buy a 60-inch plasma TV, it would probably cost around $6,000. Now plasma TVs are archaic, right? And almost nobody owns them anymore. They own LCDs, 4Ks, or UHDs recently came out. The UHDs would be considered, or the adopters of the UHD technology would be innovators. The plasma technology, or maybe even the tube TV technology, would be the laggards. And that's specifically tied to pricing and the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So if a plasma TV works, someone like my dad would probably still have it. The pattern of diffusion, I thought this was a pretty cool graphic because it directly ties time. So time is actually this axis here. Let me move that now. And it shows the different groups. This is a typical S curve. The pattern of diffusion is a typical S-curve, and you can see the percentage of the different groups. So the early majority and late majority, they make up the bulk of the S-curve, about 80%. Innovators is really small. That can be tied to price because new technology tends to be much more expensive. Early adopters, they like a product that is a little more mature, so they can tie into that. And then the laggards, they're the last. So the diffusion S-curve measures the number of adopters as a function of time. It's based on the idea that some parts of the market adopt independently from the decision of other users, while other parts of the market do not. So this basically says that different demographics, different people adopt the technology at different times in that S-curve. The rate of adoption by innovators and imitators and the size of the potential market impact this pattern. So you saw the early adopters and the late majority here. Those groups were the majority of the curve. And then the last bullet, the number of adopters will differ depending on the size of the adopter as the product matures. So as the product becomes more well known, then more people will adopt that product. It's really important for the jobs that we do, especially in technology, both hardware and software, to understand this so that we adjust our marketing and our pricing strategies for those different demographics. I do want to just note a couple of references here. The first two references are really standard technology, innovation, and strategy references. The last three, what I did here is I work in healthcare, so I wanted to focus a few examples on healthcare and how technology innovation and the diffusion, especially the S-curve related to adopters, it's the same in multiple industries. So healthcare is growing exponentially, so I wanted to provide a couple examples there, selfishly because I'm interested in that. That's it for this week. Thank you.